Husband Directive number 4, the marriage love. Hello everybody, I'm Jim McCotter. Welcome. In Ephesians 5:25, it says, quote, "For husbands, this means love your wives, just as Christ loved the church. He gave up his life for her." The Kenneth Wuest New Testament translation sometimes translates the word love as self-sacrificial love, which is real love. Agape love, which is unconditional love, has nothing to do with the person that is being loved or whether they are lovable or not. It only relates to the person doing the loving. They love because it is their choice to love. True love is what you can give, otherwise it may really be lust for what you get. Most men don't enter marriage because they're now so excited that they're going to be able to give up their life. But how did Christ define love in this verse? Quote, "He gave up his life for her." End quote. What is true love? It is not some tingy, emotional, romantic feeling. It is not something you would ever want to do naturally. What was the zenith of Christ's love for you and me? It was when Christ went to the cross for you and me. That was no walk in the park. That was no fun at all. Jesus, contemplating it, started sweating drops of blood, as the scripture says, as he agonized in prayer, thinking about what he would do for us. Jesus even prayed in Matthew 26:39, quote, "My Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken away from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine." But it was not possible if he was to have real love for us. So he chose to love us and then was nailed to the cross for us. So what was the power that won us to Christ? It was his self-sacrificial love. And what is the power that will win over any wife? It'll be our self-sacrificial love for her. Once a husband consistently demonstrates self-sacrificial love for his wife long enough, she will respect him as her leader in every way. No power is more irresistible to a wife than a husband's self-sacrificial love. But realize, even with Jesus, it was not his natural human feeling or desire to love us in going to the cross for us. He did it out of choice, sheer obedience to God the Father. Philippians 2:8 says, quote, "He humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even the death on a cross," end quote. Men, if we love our wife because she is so lovable, that's cheap love. But what about when she's not so lovable? And I don't care how fantastic your wife is, she's not like Jesus yet. There will be times that she is not too lovable. That is your time to die on your cross, to show your love. And how can you love her at that time? Only one way, the same way Jesus loved us when he did not want to go to the cross. Quote, "He humbled himself by becoming obedient." End quote. Obey God, your Father, because he said, quote, "Husbands, this means you're to love your wives, just as Christ loved." End quote. Love is not acting out how you feel. Love is being obedient to self-sacrifice. You've often heard it said, "I fell in love with her." Sadly, those who only fall in love will easily fall out of love. No real love is easy as falling. Most of us didn't really love our wives much until we got married. For most of us, pre-marriage was the most fun thing in the world. After we got married, it was only then that we were really in a position to start loving our wives. Then we could see what it really meant to serve and self-sacrifice for our wife, or to selfishly want our wife to self-sacrifice for us. Romans 15:3 and Matthew 20:28 says of Christ, "For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve others and to give his life a ransom for many." Christ didn't live to please himself. End quote. Real love is not like falling off a log. It's not easy. The Hollywood sex glamour love of today's culture is the polar opposite of real love. This love is nothing but total lust and selfishness, self-serving, and purely animalistic. And such love always ends the same way as all animalistic love ends. If you stop feeding your dog, they'll stop loving you and soon wander off somewhere else for food and self-gratification. I know some don't want to believe that about their nice little loving dog. But if they stop feeding them and someone else starts feeding them, guess what? That sweet little dog that you thought loved you so much will no longer love you, but start loving whoever gratifies them with food. Some men are like this. They never really knew what it was to love their wives. They only wagged their tail and licked the hand of the person as long as that hand continued to satisfy them. But when the physical appeal wears off, they're gone, just like an animal world. All they had was lust. They never had love. But true love is willing to die for the other person. Jesus said, John 15:13, quote, "There's no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends," end quote. However, husband, when you truly love your wife unconditionally and self-sacrificially as Jesus did towards us, you will have the impact of a resurrection with your wife. And in time, you will start to experience back from your wife a joy you never experienced from her before, just like Jesus now has from us. In 1 John 4:19, it says, "We love him because he first loved us." Your self-sacrificial love will eventually bring you joy. Hebrews 12:2, quote, "Because of the joy awaiting Jesus, he endured the cross," end quote. When your wife sees that you faithfully and unconditionally love her just as she is, her attitude will change towards you, just as our attitude changed toward Jesus when we saw how he loved us just as we are. Romans 2:4 says, "Don't you see how wonderfully kind, tolerant, and patient God is with you? Can't you see that his kindness is extended to turn you from your sin?" End quote. If God's kindness and patience can turn sinners from the depths of their sin, then realize, husbands, your kindness and patience to your wife can turn your wife around for you. Ephesians 5:25, husbands, this means love your wives, just as Christ loved the church. He gave his life up for her.